Parish ministers play a critical leadership role. This phrase appeared in the 2012 Ministries Council's report. It sets the scene for my talk, and I want to ask 4 questions. First, is this statement true? Second, is there anything new in this? Third, why is leadership such a fundamental part of parish ministry? And fourth, what sort of leadership is appropriate? Before turning to these questions, a quick word of introduction. I come to the subject of parish ministry and leadership from 3 angles. First, I am a parish minister for the last 14 years as minister of St Andrew Blackadder Church in North Berwick. Second, I've been involved in shaping policy on ministry. I convened the Church's Ministries Council until 2015. And third, at the moment I'm a postgrad student, and my particular topic is parish ministry and leadership in the Church of Scotland. Let's turn then to the first question. Is it the case that parish ministers play a critical leadership role? The report I mentioned continued, the key responsibilities listed in the Ministers of the Gospel report all imply that ministers will exercise leadership. It's quite common for policy and reality to be quite different from each other. Having helped to shape this statement, I wanted to discover if it was true. In June this year, I carried out a survey of serving Church of Scotland ministers. One of the questions which I asked was, describe how significant leadership is in your role as a parish minister, and offered 5 options. Option 1, leadership is very insignificant. No one picked that. Second, leadership is insignificant. No one picked that either. The third option was the middle of the road one, neither significant nor insignificant, and 4% picked that. The fourth option was that leadership was significant in people's ministry, and that was picked by 34%. And finally, the option that leadership was very significant was picked by 61%. That means that 95% of parish ministers in the Church of Scotland say that leadership plays either a significant or a very significant part in their ministry. This is an astonishingly high figure. Ours is a broad church. We're used to having a wide range of opinions on virtually every subject. It's almost unheard of to have something where everybody is almost in agreement. Yet this is what we have here. 95% of parish ministers say that leadership plays either a significant or a very significant part in their ministry. Now, it's not the Ministries Council that's saying this. It's not that this is an aspiration. This is the actual experience of parish ministers in 2017. Almost all of them are saying that leadership is a significant part of what they do. Let's turn to the second question. Is there anything new in this? Are we witnessing anything different, or is it really the case that offering leadership has always been a fundamental part of parish ministry? I don't think it has, and it appears to me that there have been some significant changes. The attitude within the church to ministers offering leadership has not remained static. What has happened in the church has broadly mirrored what has happened in society. Let me mention 3 phases. The first phase, up until about the 1960s, was command and control leadership. Society was very hierarchical. The church was no exception. Certain positions carried significant authority. By and large, this authority was simply accepted and automatic allegiance given to the people who held these positions. Being a parish minister was one of those positions. Parish ministers were expected to offer leadership. By and large, they did. There was little need to talk about leadership because it was widely assumed and widely practiced. That changed in the 1960s, the second phase, when Western society experienced all kinds of upheaval. All forms of authority were questioned. Hierarchies were dismantled. Egalitarianism was the order of the day. As a style of leadership, command and control rapidly fell out of favour. To quote Barbara Kellerman, leading by cooperating and collaborating was famously in fashion. This perspective on leadership soon began to affect the Church of Scotland. It changed our understanding of the role of the parish minister. For example, in 1989, the Panel on Doctrine reported on ordination. At one place, it seems to exclude parish ministers acting as leaders. It says, "The nature of this leadership is of vital importance. It must be leadership in fellowship, a corporate leadership." And it then goes on to explain that in the Church of Scotland, the basis of this kind of leadership already exists in the leadership offered by the Kirk Session, which is the corporate leadership within each congregation. The report then talks about the ministry of word and sacrament, and it doesn't mention leadership once. In other words, in the late 20th century, parish ministers are not called to be leaders. They participate in leadership through the Kirk Session, but they themselves are not to be seen as leaders. Phase 3, almost as soon as those words were written, they were out of date. Because by the 1990s, right across the society, demand for leadership was increasing. Companies and organizations found themselves striving to make sense of the changed circumstances in which they found themselves. They began looking for leaders who could help them navigate these unknown waters. Bennis and Goldsmith pick out a particularly striking example of this. Interest in leadership surged, they say, after the attacks on the World Trade Center in September 11th. By that time, the tide had also turned within the Church of Scotland. In 2000, the seminal report, Ministers of the Gospel, was published. One of the striking things about it is how often leadership is mentioned. In the 1990s, when speaking about ordination, the Church avoided speaking about leadership. By 2000, it was firmly back on the table. My third question: why is leadership such an important part of parish ministry today? Currently, we are living through a period of profound change. While every generation thinks that things have changed more for them than for any other generation before them, perhaps in our case it's actually true. Many people believe that the magnitude of change that we're currently experiencing last happened 500 years ago. That change was the result of a new technology, Gutenberg's printing press. Today's change is the result of another new technology, the internet. John Norton says that Gutenberg's printing press undermined the authority of the Catholic Church, triggered the Protestant Reformation, enabled the rise of modern science, and created entirely new social classes and professions. In similar fashion, the internet, he argues, has and will continue to radically change society, which leaves us floundering. The old ways no longer work. Things we assumed would always be the way that they are have disappeared. And you don't need me to tell you that far from being insulated from these things, the Church has felt the full brunt of them. What does it mean to be the people of God in Scotland today? How should the congregation that I am minister to fulfill its calling to be the people of God? And how should the congregation that you are part of share the good news with its community? These are urgent, pressing questions. Congregations are searching for answers. They're looking for leaders. They expect their ministers to offer that kind of leadership. And the General Assembly believes that ministers who are the ones who are ideally placed to give it. And that's because within our ecclesiology, ministers have a particular position, which the General Assembly has described as pivotal. And that word pivotal tries to capture the particular role which parish ministers play. For the way that the Church of Scotland works, parish ministers find themselves in a unique position. It's not that they are more important than anyone else. It's not that their ministry matters more than anyone else's does. It's more that they are the linchpin that allows other people to exercise their ministry. Parish ministers preach every Sunday. They moderate Kirk sessions. They are usually the only full-time employee. If a parish minister cannot or will not lead, frequently the entire system seizes up. It's very difficult for others to offer leadership if the parish minister does not. That's the reality behind that statistic that I gave you from my survey. 95% of parish ministers find that offering leadership is either a significant or a very significant part of their ministry. Finally, let me turn to the question of what sort of leadership is appropriate today. It's a huge question, worthy of a talk on its own. So let me simply mention 2 things that it should not be and 2 things that it should be. First, it should not be command and control. Command and control is not compatible with the gospel. Our model is Jesus. Jesus is an example of servant leadership. That phrase is a paradox, even a contradiction. The most vivid example comes from the time Jesus washed his disciples' feet. He did the most menial of tasks without giving up his position as leader. He said to them, "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am." And then continued, "You should do as I have done." He was both their servant and their leader. And this is our model for parish ministry. The second thing about the leadership parish ministers should offer is it must resist the superhero complex. In a rapidly changing world, people long for a saviour. Congregations hope for a superhero minister who will pluck a vision from the sky. Everyone will rally round and a fruitful new chapter will begin. That's not what we're about. I have developed a definition of leadership for workshops which I run, which goes like this. A leader enables the people they are leading to understand the situation they find themselves in, to anticipate a different scenario, and to begin travelling towards it. Rather than leadership being something that is done for people, it is done with them. It draws them in and makes them part of the solution. It's an understanding of leadership which is collaborative, enabling, and adaptive. I leave you with those 3 words to think about: collaborative, enabling, adaptive. What might they mean for you? How might they become a more prominent part of the leadership which you offer? Thank you.